Peter Thiel meets Darwin. Finally, I think I've solved one big question that I had for a while, which is what did Thiel mean when he said competition is for losers? I think he's being attacked as a sort of monopolist, evil business person or something. Actually, what he meant is what Darwin meant, because Darwin never spoke about the survival of the fittest. That wasn't his concept. Darwin's concept was that you evolve niches, that you don't compete. Actually, it's the exact opposite. It's that evolution, species wants to evolve into their own niche. And that is what is the strength of evolution. If it was about competition, if it was about, I want to do the same like you do, just a little better, well, how would we evolve? Think about it. Like the concept of evolution is based on the fact that we're evolving niches, and this is beautifully, this ties beautifully into the work I've been doing recently on my series on niches and evolution and the connection between, excuse me, Nick Lane and Karl Popper and Christensen and Musk, and my new essay, which is hopefully going to be published soon. The title, I believe it's still a working title, but I believe it's going to be When Popper Meets Musk. It's exactly about that. It's about how niches evolve and how the environment evolves with the niches. This is another Imran podcast. It's January 17, 2023. This is Krim Telco. For the day, the fund is up 7.5%. The market is down 20 basis points. For the year, we are up 8.5%. The market is up 3.9%. We're outperforming by 4.6%. The main outperformance comes from Tesla. The price cuts, like we said on Friday and over the weekend, are a good thing. It's the right thing to do. The company is a cost leader, and a cost structure defines a company. And Tesla is basically back to pre-COVID cost leadership and will drive volumes and be a true disruptor in that sense. Now let's talk about this concept of competition versus evolution. And I think this is really an important insight that we have. We combine Peter Thiel with Darwin here. Darwin never spoke about survival of the fittest. Actually, that wasn't his sentence, which is perverse. Like over years, you learn about this, and Darwinism is considered this thing where you compete fiercely, and it's about killing each other. And the communists, they say it's a bad thing, and the weak they die, and we should have a better system. And collectivism was used actually very often. They used this concept of survival of the fittest as a counter argument for competition. And what's really going on here is actually exactly what Peter Thiel was talking about, and what we instinctively at Orange Capital Partners actually always wanted, which is we wanted a system. We want a system. We want to invest in companies that evolve their own niches. We're not interested in companies that compete fiercely. Now, when we say a company is competitive, what we really mean is a company is able to create its own niche. This is very Clayton Christian-esque. This is actually exactly what economic growth is supposed to be about. Economic growth is not about competition. Economic growth is not about driving down margins and fighting for the same market share with the same type of resources, fighting for the same employees, fighting for the same pieces of land. Like, let's say, real estate is not a competitive industry in that sense. Real estate is a zero-sum industry, and that's why it's a bad industry. What's good about the economy and free voluntary exchange capitalism is that you have the ability to create new things, that you have the ability to evolve new niches. When we say create new things, what we really mean is evolve new niches. What do we mean in evolving new niches? That's where Nick Lane comes in. That's where Darwin comes in. That's where evolutionary biology comes in. It is finding a relationship between the environment and your particular set of skills and assets and your knowledge that can evolve into something new. And then the environment changes. So if we go back to evolutionary biology, let's take the fish, the lungfish, as we call it, the Neil Shubin example. We spoke about Neil Shubin in a previous podcast. It's really a nice example. Think about the lungfish. So this is a creature that is kind of deciding to go from water to land. And the question here is, okay, how does this even happen? How can a fish go to land? Well, Shubin's argument is that there's an intermediary. There's a and Lane calls it an archaeological intermediary. So there is this intermediary. There is a thing which has certain skills or certain assets. In the case of the lungfish, the ability to absorb oxygen from air, and also has certain things which allows it to maybe develop limbs. Okay, very important. So what is this thing doing? It's living in shallow, oxygen poor parts of the water. So it's still getting oxygen from water like every other fish through well, fishes do it through gills. This one is doing it a little bit differently. It doesn't matter about the details, but the point is this thing can get oxygen from water, but it also has the ability to maybe get oxygen from the air. And this is the key. This is the intermediary. It then goes to the shallow parts of water because that's where there's less competition. There's no sharks, no whatever creatures lived back. We're talking 380 million years ago, and it then is able to start evolving and evolve into this new niche, which is crawl on land, conquer maybe the first parts of the beach, find ways to eat the plants there and the insects, which is the only thing that is living at this point on Earth. There's no other animals. And then slowly starts evolving, slowly starts, in a symbiotic relationship with the environment, starts evolving, starts developing all these skills that are necessary to start conquering land, and slowly but surely, we can also call this a pioneer species. It's the first species, and then other species build on top of it, and then we go forward. And what's really interesting, and why is Neil Shubin such an interesting character? Well, he's a paleontologist. So why are we talking about paleontologists here? Because typically these archaeological intermediaries, we don't even see them anymore because they're the intermediaries. There's other species that build on top of them that actually conquer and become much bigger, and then we don't even see the archaeological intermediaries anymore. But they exist, and the paleontologists, they can find the fossils, and that's really why this is so amazing. So let's get back to our conversation here. This is a beautiful example of how this lungfish created a new niche, created a new market, if you will, for themselves. They didn't compete with sharks and barracudas and other fish for market share. They created their own new niche, and this is really what's so beautiful. So when Peter Thiel says competitions for losers, what he really means is that instead of trying to fight for the same market with the same, don't try to copy other people. Do your own thing. Find your own niche. This is what he means. This is what Christensen means when he says that true disruptors are really the things that drive economic growth. When he says that we are in a world like our free voluntary capitalism works best if we invest in resources and abilities to evolve new markets. Again, this is so crucial. It might sound obvious. It's one of those things that once you say it, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, what else is there? But the way most people understand competition, the way most people understand Darwinism and all these words, it's the wrong way to understand these things. It's not about elbowing, competing, trying to, squeeze a little bit more out of something which already exists. It is evolve new niches, evolve new markets. This is so beautiful. To summarize, again, when Peter Thiel meets Darwin, when Darwin is understood correctly, we're not talking about competing for market share. We're not talking about the kind of competition where we're doing the same thing with the same type of assets and we sort of erase our margins. It's not that. It is finding our niche, finding our market, evolve into a new market, and then help evolving the market. This is how disruption works. This is what we do at Orange Capital Partners when we say that we invest in fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices. It is really about companies that we find, that we deploy our capital, that are finding new, that are evolving new markets, that are using assets, that are using knowledge, that are creating new knowledge that is able to evolve into a new market. Thank you.